welcome to the latest episode of the Dram Show with me, Chris Goodrum. Right, okay, so it's part 2 of our Compass Box trilogy, and we're getting into the really experimental stuff now. This is kind of like the stuff that that I really like, and yeah, this is the stuff that Compass Box have become synonymous with, I guess, and you know, revered and hated in the same breath, I guess, to a certain extent. So we're now going to look at some of the like I said, the more experimental bottlings that John has created, and well, I won't waffle too much more. I'll just introduce what we're going to taste. Right, so first we're going to look at a bottling called Oak Cross. Now it's bottled at 43%, and interestingly enough, it's a vatted malt. It's comprised of malts taken from Clynelish, Dalywen and Tianish. God, pronounce it correctly, come on. It's been aged initially in first fill American oak, and then it's finished in the custom casks that I was talking about in episode 1, which are American oak casks with the ends removed and French oak ends added. Now, I believe, although I get what I believe from what I've tasted, when I remember originally tasted this, I think what they did was that they basically bottled it directly from the finishing cask, because I remember that it had a huge buttery, winey Chardonnay character along with that sort of tight French oak kind of character, and it really was a real oak monster. And I remember tasting it and I was thinking, my God, this is just so different. I mean, this was what, I don't know, 2004, 5, something, I don't know, years ago. I remember when this came out. I probably should have checked my tasting notes for when I first tasted it, but it was really different. And subsequently I've tasted it again, and I think that they have refined. And this is the thing with experimentation, is that you know, you start off, you do something, you think, yeah, this is really interesting, this could be different, and you refine it as you go along. You know, you tweak something here and there, and I think that what they've done is, and no doubt if I'm wrong, Compass Box will tell me so, is that what they've done is they do not bottle it now directly from the finishing cask. I think what they do is they then vat it all back in again into American oak, let it settle, let it marry, and as we'll probably find out from the tasting, he says, fingers crossed, it's less hugely oaked. So, you know, we'll kind of see on this one. Now, this is the Spice Tree. Now, this was originally, and I remember tasting it originally, this was aged in the original custom cask with the inner staves, and again, it was a lot of that tight French oak. It really was something very different, and I remember stocking it, and because it was just so out there at the time, there was nothing else like it at all on the market. It was just completely and utterly unique, and I just loved it for that. And they did two releases of it before Scotch Whisky Association, you know, were up in arms about it. And personally, you know, if it was me, and if I was John Glaze, I would have just said, you know, I'll do it my way. I want to do this. You know, they said, well, you can't call it Scotch Whisky, and I said, well, I'll call it something completely bloody different. You know, it doesn't matter to me whether it's called Scotch Whisky or not. It's what I'm doing. You know, and if they'd have come back with, well, you're a Scotch company or blah 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 blah, I'd say, well, I'll emigrate to Newfoundland, I'll go to New Zealand, I'll go wherever and do, you know, where you can't sort of give me this kind of grief. And, you know, they kind of gave in, you know, they gave in and said, all right, we'll take out the inner staves. I mean, I guess you can argue the point that it's not really affected although, you know, up until now I haven't tasted it in its new guise, so it's difficult to say whether it's you know, changed the character considerably. Who knows? But again, like anything, you have to taste it as a kind of a standalone product and not necessarily judge it on what's been bottled in the past under the same name. But You know, it's like I said, it's a shame that the Scotch whisky industry has got its head up its own, you know, and just can't see that there is a room for innovation in Scotch whisky, whether it tends to be different types of cask, whether it's about different mash bills or whatever. You know, they are just so obsessed with clamping down on anything that's whoa slightly different. You know, now you know. You might think I'm just continually criticising the Scotch Whisky Association, and to a certain extent I am, but yeah, they do a good job. They protect obviously the interest of Scotch whisky from, you know, stuff that's made elsewhere, certainly on the subcontinent, which tends to be made more from molasses than anything else, and you know. But then you've got this absurd thing where, you know, they have a go at a distillery in, when was it, in Canada. I forget the name of it, Glen Royal or something like that they bottled, and it was just like, you know, on the label it said Canadian whiskey. You know, there was no getting away from it. They weren't trying to market it as a Scotch whisky, but oh no, the Scotch Whisky Association said, oh, you can't call it Glen, everybody will start to think it's a Scotch whisky. Duh. You know, do they think the consumers are completely thick that they don't actually read labels? Well, you know. Anyway, so, you know, and they spend millions fighting these kind of pointless battles just to make a bloody point, you know, and it's just like, what is the point? You know, stick to what you're doing, just get with the program, get with the 21st century. You know, there are people that want to innovate, let them, you know, don't just basically go around, oh, you can't do that. Anyway, enough of that. I've probably said enough about that in the first episode, and I'll probably get panning from somebody. Somebody will be upset about what I've said, but I call a spade, as you well and truly know. And the final bottling we'll be looking at today is a classic example of the tweaking of a recipe, should we say. Now, this is the Orangery, bottled at I think 40%. It's not written on the label, and I must admit I haven't looked. But now, again, interesting kind of concept. It's a blended malt. It's created from a Highland malt, which I'm guessing is probably going to be Tea and Inish, and Cameron Bridge grain. What they then do is they then add the zested peel of Navalino oranges, some Indonesian cassia bark, and Sri Lankan cloves. Now, when I first tasted this, it was a kind of a little bit unscientific, wasn't it? You know, it was, they took a barrel, they took a load of malt, and they just chucked a load of oranges in it. You know, interesting, different, I guess. And the first bottling I ever tasted of this, it was just sweet orange overload. It really was just sort of like, you know, so OTT. It was unbelievable. Since then, they've got a little bit more scientific about the whole thing, and I remember the last time I tasted it, it was like tasting a whiskey with a sort of an enhanced orange kind of character. So, but that was, you know, quite a long time ago. So it'll be interesting to see how this bottling kind of like, you know, stacks up to what I remember it to be like. And yeah, this is always the interesting thing about coming back and tasting something after a number of years. You have a kind of set kind of impression of certainly a blended whiskey or vatted whiskey or something like that, which is, you know, kind of an ongoing brand, I suppose, for want of a better word. And there's always something kind of sticks in your mind, and then you sort of taste it again and you go, and that either kind of reinforces that kind of perception or it kind of just blows it completely out of the water. So it will be interesting to see well, which one that one does, I guess. So anyway, right, enough of that spurious waffling. Let's taste some whiskey. But then you came and you changed it all. Right, Oak Cross. Let's see what the nose gives us. Whoa, that's herbal. Whoa, big herbal intensity. Lots of tight French oak. It's got an almost kind of rye-like kind of character, sort of herbally rye. I mean, I kind of keep picking this up now. I mean, I guess it's probably because I've been tasting over the last few months an awful lot of American whiskies, a lot of ryes, and when they're young, they tend to have this real grainy herbal intensity, real sort of intensity to them, and I seem to be sort of picking up this note in a lot of different whiskies that have got absolutely nothing at all to do with rye, and this just really has it. It's really grainy, gritty, really intense. It's a lot different to how I remember it. I remember it, like I said, to being a lot more voluptuous and Chardonnay-esque, so it does kind of seem to me that maybe they don't kind of vat it all back in again now. Maybe originally it was all aged in these custom. I don't, possibly it was all aged in a custom cask. Maybe now it's just kind of the finishing just gives it a light sort of character. But anyway, I mean, yeah, the nose is really intriguing. It's really interesting, and I have continually stocked this particular bottling, and again, it's not particularly expensive, and again, it's really different and interesting, and I love this. This is really intense. It's got a lovely spiciness to it, a herbal sort of spiciness, you know, sort of kind of cardamom, that kind of thing, sort of greeny spice. A little bit of maltiness. There is some whiskey underneath all of that, believe me. It's certainly got some lovely character to it, some malt and barley. A little bit of a nip from the grain, a little bit of edgy spiciness. But it's that sort of tight oak that's kind of the focus of the nose. Ah. It's got a nice bite. Palate seems to be more about the American oak, the sort of toffee, the sort of, not necessarily, yeah, cream caramel, vanilla. A little bit less real emphasis on the French oak, but it's certainly there at the edges. That gives it that kind of, like I said, that kind of edgy, tight, grainy kind of character. Emphasised obviously by the grain whiskey, it's giving it that nip, but still there's some lovely fruit. You know, there's some nice honey, malt, barley. Yeah, it's a great blend. It's really very good. Again, like I said, I don't. Maybe in the past it was maybe a little bit too much focused on the wood, but you know, like I said to you, that's kind of, you know, that was John's fetish, for want of a better word. You know, the whole oak thing. You know, I mean, you can imagine him sort of caressing the casks, and no, probably not. No, sorry, John. But no, I mean, like I said, I don't think the emphasis is so heavily as it used to be on the oak. Certainly, there's a lot more spirit character, and again, it's a really interesting blend. So, yeah, really nice.
This will never be the same.
Right, time to tackle the Scotch Whisky Association's nemesis then, shall we, the Spice Tree. So it was reborn. I think I've even got a bottle of the second release, I think, in my collection, I think. Such as much as I actually really liked it. I must admit, partly I thought it was going to disappear for good, so you know it would end up being worth an absolute fortune. But no, it came back. So, but anyway, that's by the by. Let's see what the nose gives us then, shall we? Now, take that kind of tight, grainy herbalness that you find in the oak cross and just amplify it. I mean, now apparently I believe the oak heads in the Spice Tree have a higher toasting, a more I'd probably call it crocodile char, something like that. So it really gets the tannins and gets into the wood and sort of pulls out the spices, and it's not a huge spice monster either. It's more, like I said, it's more about that gritty kind of tight tannin, herbal, rye-like, real intensity to it. Different, you know, really focused. I mean, there's a bit of malt underneath there. There is some whiskey there, but I guess a bit like the experimental Great King Street batch is it's a singular emphasis, and the emphasis is on the French oak, really, at the end of the day. And again, I don't remember it being quite so herbal and sort of intense. I mean, I'm guessing that maybe with more French oak, it might, like I said, give it more of that kind of buttery, winey, Chardonnay kind of character. And maybe it's because that sort of, French oak casks, when they use them for wine, tend to be less heavily toasted. I don't know. I'm just kind of just throwing things up in the air and kind of just train of thought kind of stuff. Bit Eddie Izzard of the whiskey world, but maybe not quite so funny. Anyway, I digress. There's some toast. There's some toastiness. There's some toffee. A little bit of caramel. Bit of maltiness. But like I said, I mean, at the end of the day, it's that real sort of herbal, tight, grainy, oaky kind of character, which is what you just kind of zoom in. But yeah, really interesting. That's nice. A lot of sort of coffee, toffee, licorice up first. Then you start to get that sort of grainy French oak and herbal notes coming through. A lot of malt, a lot of toffee, robust, full, big. It's big. It's a big whiskey. A lot of body to it. Full. Not a huge amount of spice, but there's a lovely amount of it. There's a nice enough amount of it. It kind of, like I say, has that kind of herbal graininess to it. Bit of coffee grains, bit of treacle, dark, malty. That is lovely. That really just goes on and on and on. It is really nice, and it's different. I mean, it does, like I said, it kind of reminds me, like I say, of a little bit of an American rye. And it's quite unique, and you can definitely say there certainly isn't anything else on the market that comes close to the character of that. And yeah, impressive, really impressive.
A true burning love. Remember, you can tame my passion.
And finally, the Orangery. Right. Okay. Let's see what a few years of tweaking and refining have done to this then, shall we? It's quite sweet. It's orangey, obviously. Very liqueur-like. It's got a sort of a nice kind of crunchy, granulated sugar, sort of orangey character. A little bit of clove, a little bit of kind of almost cardamom pod. Again, that sort of greeny sort of spiciness. Some barky notes. It kind of does what it says on the tin, really. You can't fault it. It's probably a little bit more orangey than I remember it. There's probably less spirit character, but it's not as confected as I remember it. Or should I say, remember the first bottling that they did of it. I don't think it's as I remember it being like a whiskey with an enhanced orange character. It's now kind of more verging on the liqueur-like kind of style, I suppose. It's still really nice. It's interesting. It's dare I say it, maybe a little bit girly. Possibly. Julia loves it. She tasted it and went, "Oh, I really like that. You ought to stock that." Funnily enough, I do. Was my reply. But anyway, no. In all seriousness, there is an element of spirit character there. It's just kind of behind all that orange. It's maybe, like I said, it's not quite like it used to be. It's not quite so spirit orientated with a sort of like an enhanced orange character. It's now more sort of orange character with a bit of spirit, you know. But you know, it's nice. It's what it is, you know. But that is very, very orangey, luscious, liqueur-like. But the trouble with a lot of liqueurs, they tend to be just too sweet all the way through. They're often bottled at too low a ABV, and there's not enough kind of like alcohol to kind of like balance the sweetness. Now, this is interesting because, like I said, because it's got a grain whiskey component. That grain whiskey component certainly comes through on the finish with that sort of clean, spicy, not necessarily spicy, but spirity grain character, and it kind of cleanses and it wipes away all that sort of orange. You get a big dollop of orange to start off with, and it's like, yeah, like I said, very luscious and very soft and a little bit sweet, and you know, suddenly the sort of like the grain comes through and it kind of like just cleans everything up. So yeah, it's not bad actually. It is not bad at all. I would much prefer to drink that over some kind of, you know, horribly sweet orange liqueur thing. You know, whether it's your kind of cup of tea or not, I don't know. But you know, it's not too bad. It's pleasant. Yeah. Right. Okay. So let's sum up the lineup, the episode 2, the experimental batches, the stuff that Compass Box has made a name for itself doing. Well, no cross, yeah, I kind of like it. Like I said, it's different, it's interesting, it's like I say, I've stocked it for quite a number of years now. It has that lovely sort of balance of sort of like American oak and that sort of tight French oak. Not quite as hugely French oaked as I remember it to be. Probably, I think it's better balanced now. Like I said, maybe it's because it's not, you know, has been, maybe it was wholly aged in these custom casks and is now just finished in these custom casks. Maybe it's all vatted back. Who knows? All I can say is that, you know, the balance is a lot better. It's still got the focus on that kind of French oak kind of character. Which gives it that uniqueness, but you know, I think all in all, it is a lovely, lovely whiskey, and we still stock it. Spice Tree, well, yeah, again different. I don't remember it being quite so herbal and so intense. Maybe again, that's down to the fact that, you know, the cask. The custom casks have changed, and it's now not quite so sort of buttery and winey and what have you as it used to be. Either way, it is really intriguing stuff. You know, it's unique. There is, well, if you forget about sort of like American rye, like I kept going on about, you know, there's nothing else quite like it on the market. So yeah, really distinctive, really interesting. You know, really good. And the Orangery. Well, it's kind of something you're going to love or hate, really, at the end of the day. It's either going to be your cup of tea or it ain't. Looking at it purely from a quality aspect, it's pretty good. It does what I think it should do. You get a lot of orangey, sweet fruit up first, and then the grain component kind of cleans it up and clears it away and crisps it up and freshens the palate right at the finish. You don't get left with this kind of sticky sweet residue in your mouth, which you get with a lot of liqueurs and what have you. So so from that point of view, yep, I think it's really, really good. Personally, I don't think it's quite as good as what it was, to be bluntly honest with you. I think the emphasis has shifted a little bit too far to the orange notes, the orange character, and it's kind of moved away from the sort of like the whiskey element. Personally, I'd like to have seen a lot more subtle orange character like it used to be. when it was more sort of like spirit led, with like I said, an enhanced whiskey character. Enhanced orange character. That's what happens when you taste 5 whiskies on the trot. You kind of get your words mangled up. But anyway, like I say, it's not bad. I don't think it's quite as good as what it was, but you know, it's kind of splitting hairs really at the end of the day, isn't it? So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this second episode of the show on the Compass Box range. One more to go, which will have some interesting stuff, and I'm not going to taste them all today. That will wait till next week. So all that's left to say is good dramming and good afternoon.